This is the Pilot Waves On Demand podcast. My name is Alex Vidalis. That was BioVore with Unknown Fear. All the music on today's episode was selected by Richard Johnson from Drugs of Faith, who you're going to hear an interview with today. Thank you for listening to the Pilot Waves podcast. Every episode of the Pilot Waves podcast, we try to bring to you artists, musicians, comedians, entrepreneurs, small business owners. We want to tell you their stories. We want to see if we can find some common ground in the struggles and the victories in these creative worlds. We think if we talk about this stuff and we help you understand and know these stories a little bit deeper, then maybe somewhere down the line, in a question mark, profit. Yeah. But we do believe that if we make the community further embedded with each other's successes, then that's going to mean better, smarter money for all of us. And without any further ado, I want to bring to you a great interview, an amazing musician, Richard Johnson from the Drugs of Faith. But first, I want to say that this episode is dedicated to a friend of mine who recently lost his very best friend in the world. This is for you, buddy. Richard Johnson, Drugs of Faith on the Pilot Waves podcast. Thanks for joining us.
Ahem.
Welcome, sir, to the Pilot Waves podcast. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So for everyone listening at home, I'm joined today by Richard from Drugs of Faith. And did you want to listen to any of your other credits as well, or are we just going to go with that?
The other big thing is I've got Disposable Underground blog. I've been doing that since 91. It's still funny saying blog because it used to be a zine.
Yeah.
And some people know me from Agoraphobic Nosebleed. I can't go without mentioning that, of course, either.
I was going to say that that was one thing that Jason specifically requested. He's absolutely in love with that band. And when he plays me that stuff, I mean, we just sit there, and it's one of those things that it demands your attention. And for that, I really appreciate that. And, you know, and if I could nerd out for one moment, that's one of the things that I always enjoy about the music that you make is that it demands attention and it rewards the listener for paying attention. And so for that, we thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, you know, I'm sorry, go ahead.
The interesting thing is that it really does elicit a strong reaction from listeners. People are really rabid about Agoraphobic Nosebleed, and it's great.
Why do you think that it resonates with people?
You know, there's a certain... people have a certain interest. It tickles something in their brain, you know? It's kind of hard to explain. People that are into extremes, you know, maybe they don't live their life that way, but they really get into it in terms of the entertainment that they consume. You know, that fits in with that a lot.
Right.
Not in the same way that they'll like Napalm Death or something, because it's a little more, a word that comes to mind is mean, but that's not quite it. It's maybe a little more twisted.
I'm with you. Now,
yeah.
in terms of the musical delivery or the imagery and the topic and subject matter.
That's right. And it goes back and forth from very crude to political, actually, but not that political really isn't the point. It's some of it might happen to be political.
In terms of, because what I like what you said is it tickles that little something in the back. And so do you think that it's tickling one particular thing, or do you think that it's because it's touching on multiple, you know, areas? Like it's not just an oral assault. It's also like a mind assault. And
Yeah. A lot of it's the lyrical content for sure. You know, if we put out a bunch of records and there wasn't a lyric sheet, it would be different.
Sure.
Yeah.
How important is it for you when you enjoy art for it to tickle that part of you?
You know, like, for example, today I listened to that new Autopsy track that got premiered.
Okay.
And that's a different sort of a, you know, that gets you off in a different way. Just because you go, that's so sick.
So is that what draws you? So that's specifically what draws you to that particular music. But When you're creating music, is that what you're thinking about sometimes? Like, I want someone to feel or think this when they hear it.
Not that, because we're not going for that.
Right.
I want someone to go, that rocks,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, but there's many ways to go about that, right?
Yeah.
So for you as an artist, like what is part of it you getting off too? Like you're making music that makes you excited, and then that's also like what your hope resonates to when you make the music?
Oh, sure. You know that cliche, bands always say, I write music that I want to hear.
Right.
And that's really true. But we think about how, the feedback that we get as well. Like when we put sets together, we don't want to have too many songs that are, let's say, that are slow. Like too many, we call them rock songs, ones that don't have fast parts in them.
Sure.
We've got those. That also depends on who we're playing with. Usually we're the least extreme band on the bill, or if it's more of a rock show, we're the most extreme band on the bill, so we'll take that into account.
Right.
I guess in both, I guess if it's more of less of a metal show or less of a grind show, we can have more of a, maybe I shouldn't say balance, but we can have more rock songs in it. So if people go to a show expecting to be grinded, then we need to keep up, basically.
How important is it to satisfy the expectations of the crowd? Do you find that that's of large importance, or do you guys just kind of do what you're going to do?
Well, that's a tough one, because if a person's going to say they're going to be true to their art, they're just going to do what they want and not worry about whether anybody likes it or not. But of course we want people to like it. So I don't want to say that we're just writing music that people want to hear, because then we could just be, I don't know, what band should I
Yeah, I was going to say,
out?
Who should we throw out under the bus? Lord. I've been bad-mouthing her lately just because she has like that song that everyone knows.
I don't know it.
Welcome to Washington, D.C., capital of the land of the free. Can't you see the irony? In the hometown of democracy, you can't even vote. You gotta hate it. You've got taxation, no representation. You gotta hate it. What a roof is caving in. The architects are cashing in. When the next wave occupies the city, will we fight torches of flame? Or will we heavy with stupidity reside in the flame? You're gonna love it here, right here. This is your playground. Feel free to throw your weight around. Welcome to Washington, D.C. Set a precedent they don't have to meet any minimum requirement for honesty, integrity. All throughout the government, there's no accountability. And since we get entitlement, they plan to the economy. Just still like a book.
That was Mobius Strip with Washington, D.C. Mobius Strip are playing with Drugs of Faith, who you were listening to an interview with Richard Johnson of Drugs of Faith. They are going to be playing a show with the band you just heard, Mobius Strip, April 16th at Empire. They're going to be playing with the band Czar. Now let's kick it right back into this interview with Richard Johnson of Drugs of Faith on the Pilotways podcast.
But to get back to what we were saying, When bands, when they're running a record and they'll say something along the lines of, "We're not going to deviate too far from what we're doing because our fans expect something from us."
Sure.
And so maybe they try to change within that framework, like Bolt Thrower. People like Bolt Thrower for a specific reason. So Bolt Thrower is going to write Bolt Thrower records, and that's totally fine. And so the different Bolt Thrower records sound different. They're not all exactly the same, but they're pretty consistent. So this reminds me of when we were putting together the Corroded record. I was looking at all the songs and I started thinking, I don't think we have enough blast beats on this record. At the time, before we had everything completely written, it seemed like it was a little bit too rock, and I wanted to keep that grind and roll that we have. I'm doing air quotes here. Going, because that's part of what we do, or maybe I should say that's what we do. We have that mix. I wanted to keep the mix going, and
right.
people that listen to us, they know that's what we're putting out.
Sure, and they've come to expect it to a certain extent.
Yeah, so I guess it's a balance between doing what you want, satisfying yourself, and then just being not considerate, but taking into consideration who's listening.
When you're dealing with a community like the metal community or like the DIY and the punk communities and those things, it seems like there is a lot of classifications there are a lot of classifications of the music that people can use. Do you ever find that there's like too many classifications, within that sort of like world?
Oh yeah. It's helpful when people want something really specific, they can go for it. I don't want doom. I want funeral doom, for example. I can't remember who it was, and this might have been like Hit Parader or something, like way back in I think it was a Megadeth quote. Dave Mustaine said something about, we have to have all these sub tags like thrash metal and speed metal because people are calling, like, I can't remember who he was referring to, Bon Jovi, let's say,
as metal.
As metal. And is Bon Jovi metal and Judas Priest metal? It's not the same thing.
Right.
So that's all right. You could call everything metal, and you can go, I'm going to go to a metal show, and then when you get there, it's death metal. So people are into different stuff. They could love Iron Maiden and hate, Autopsy.
You probably run into house shows more often than some other genres of music. Can you talk a little bit about that world and how it's supportive? Like, we nerded up a little bit about community here on this show. Can you talk a little bit about how reliant that community is on itself and like how that network of houses and shows sort of comes together?
Oh yeah.
And I know it's different for every house, of course, but just on an abstract level.
Oh sure, of course it's extremely important. As a matter of fact, this band from Philly that we're friends with needed a show, and I got them one at a house. They wrote saying we need a show in DC, and a suburb was close enough, and it was great. There was a good amount of people that showed up. They had a good time. I don't know if they sold anything, but they got some gas money, so in that sense, they could have tried to get a show in a club, a place with a real stage, but
right.
They had a blast. So what's the difference?
Sure.
So if you do a tour, let's say, or a weekend, and it's all houses, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I guess the bottom line is, did you have fun? If you're trying to at least break even on a tour, did you make some money?
Right.
And not just pay everything out of pocket. Talking about that, we're always expecting not to make any.
Right.
We just look at the band as a money pit because we're just doing it for fun. so it's fine. And when we make some money, we just go, hey, bonus, that's awesome.
Right. Well, do you find, like, how do you, and I don't mean like, how do you guys feed yourselves literally, like with jobs, but like, how do you feed yourself creatively then? What drives you to make more music? What drives you to do it and play shows and go and go on tours?
Oh, well, we don't tour much. We just play one-offs and we'll do a weekend once in a while. We haven't actually done a tour where we played more than 3 shows since we went to Europe in, I think it was '06, which is a little ridiculous.
That is that's quite some time.
Yeah, I know. Decibel, I think, called us, they called us homebodies. So, you can't argue with it, can you?
Sure, of course.
So I most like playing shows, because I figure you're right, and you rehearse with a band, not just so you can go and record, but also to play it for the people. Like Taryn, our bass player, she's more into the creative process of just writing, and then recording. It's a grind, but mostly the writing and the creating a song, and so they can go, wow, this thing's done, this song rules,
Right.
that sort of thing.
She's a maker. She likes to make things.
She's a maker, right? I think it's really important to have that camaraderie in a band. Some bands, they don't have a friendship, and that's okay. Like, this is just something they get together and they do, and then they go their separate ways. But I think having the right attitude in a band, and when I say attitude, enthusiasm for doing it, and a desire to do it, want to get up and do it, and also be friendly with the other guys or girls in the band and be able to work together. I think that's actually more important than being able to play.
Oh, definitely.
So being able to and getting together at a show, that's part of it too. That's actually a big one. Hanging out at the show, talking to the other bands,
Right.
talking to people that showed up. Going from show to show if you're on tour. Talking about community, just like that community within the band.
No, for sure.
And then when you're on tour with another band, seeing them at each show, that's something to look forward to, because you can hang out with that band again that night, and then do it again the next night.
You definitely seem like you enjoy a lot of the different aspects of having a band. It's not just about the musical performance. Do you enjoy like the social aspect of it too, like going out, meeting people, saying like, hey, come see my show, and then getting that high when they actually do come to the show? That's probably pretty sweet, I imagine.
Oh yeah, because you can hand out some flyers and somebody might go, okay, or they might look at it and go, oh, this sounds pretty cool. Then you hope they show up. Of course you can't remember every face that you give a flyer to,
Right.
but yeah, it's really gratifying when people show up, for sure.
Have you built friendships with, let's say, I'm going to use air quotes too, with fans? Like people who like have come to see you and just introduced you. They're like, oh man, I've never seen your band, and then now they've probably been following you for like 5-10 years almost.
Oh yeah,
Right.
yeah, it's great.
Is it like, do you get like, do they engage with you? Like, how do you like that? Do you like when the fans are, and when I say fans, again, with air quotes, I'm not trying to like put you up at this like higher level and say, you're fans, but at the same time, do you like getting feedback from fans? Like they're like, oh, I love this record, or this song totally kicked ass. And
Well, I mean, who doesn't want to hear that?
Yeah.
And we can say fans because I'm fans of other bands.
Yeah, of
I'm
course, of
fans
course.
with the band, with all of the bands that we're going to play with, at our next show, for example.
oh, we totally forgot to mention the shows we have coming up. So let's talk about it. You have a show coming up on April 16th.
Right. So we're playing with Mobius Strip from DC and Czar from Chicago. So they're coming through.
Right on. And you're going to hear a Mobius Strip on this episode as well. And then you had another show on the 28th.
Right. So the show with Czar is at Empire in Springfield. And this Friday, the 28th, we're playing Club K in Baltimore with Hellbear and The Wayward and Enemy Insects. So that's going to be good. I'm really looking forward to seeing all of them. I haven't seen Wayward in a long time. And, whenever I talk to somebody about the show, they say the same thing about The Wayward. And Hellbear, I just saw them for the first time last week, and they're so tight and they're so heavy. They've just, they've got it down.
We ask people on the Pilot Waves podcast from time to time, like, let's imagine that you woke up tomorrow and someone said, okay, Richard, you got to make You have to make a business out of your art now. It's now your job. You have to get paid, and you have to feed yourself. What would you do differently, and how would you go about it? That was Drugs of Faith with a Sacrifice song by the name of Reanimation. An amazing cover. I have to be completely honest because I don't want to be a total fucking poser. But I'm not familiar with the original song, but I'm definitely going to check out the original because that Drugs of Faith cover is amazing. And I want to thank Richard for bringing it in and letting us play it on the podcast. And that's who we're interviewing on today's podcast, Richard Johnson from Drugs of Faith. Let's get to the third and final part of the interview.
What would I do differently? Well, we'd have to get on more of a schedule, make sure we practice more often. I'd practice myself more often. And I guess what you have to do is force yourself to write. I remember this Opeth DVD. They've got a few, and maybe they said the same thing on all of them. You know, the guy that writes all the music, he'll get up, he'll have some coffee, check some email, and then he'll start writing. And 80% of it he has to throw out because he's just like making himself write. And if he doesn't come up with anything, then he'll try to just do it again later, until he finds something good, and then he can build a song off of it. So, you have to put out a record so you can put it out, or you have to write a record so you can go and record it and put it out and go out on tour. So and then you've got something to tour on, so because that's where the money's coming in. And I guess there's some debate now, or at least I saw a few posts on this about, well, wait a minute, do bands actually make money on the road because everybody's downloading now and you can't rely on, record sales?
Sure.
At least when they do physical copies, maybe they don't do runs like they used to.
Right. No, talk about that. We love to talk about that stuff because
Right.
I don't have any vision into that. I don't, I think I have the hypothesis that people aren't selling as much because they can download it for free, but I don't know how many of those people who were downloading music wouldn't have bought anything anyways, so it's kind of it's a weird world for me to think of. Like, I do appreciate that being able to download music makes you maybe more likely to go see a live act. But I don't know. But I interrupted you. You're the guest.
That's okay. People, used to say, let's say on boards, yeah, I'll download it, and I like it. After I check it out, then I'll buy it, And, of course, everybody says, well, music should be free. And I don't know if they expand that to saying art should be free.
Right.
But I think part of that is them saying that just because, Napster came out originally,
Sure.
I guess it was, and they can get it for free. So then they say,
You took the words
that
out
it
of my
should
mouth.
be.
It's exactly right because they can be free, so it should be free.
Right.
Yeah.
When I say it can be free, like they can get it for free, to be more specific.
Right.
So there's more of an emphasis on packaging these days.
Right.
For example, I don't know how many people have bought our new 12-inch that don't have a record player,
Right.
just because they wanted to get that physical copy because it's got a download code in it.
Right.
So that way they'll be able to play it. Of course, I think that these days that's essential.
I don't know. I don't know how to get more butts in the seats. Like, that's more than anything. That's what I want to do. But I have a feeling that it's actually offering more diverse music as part of it. I think that, venues tend to get very myopic in the offerings that they have because they found a little bit of money, with certain offerings. And I'm thinking of particular venues, but I don't think that's the answer. I think you have to show the diversity of your community in order to actually get the community to engage with you.
Yeah, I think you can have a reputation for hosting different types of music if you do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess some places are just presenting themselves as being boutique.
Mm-hmm.
We do this specifically, and we do it really well.
Right.
Getting butts in the seats, that just takes a lot of hard work. The bands in DC, some of them in particular, they just flyer their asses off.
Right.
And because and they'll say this themselves, it's not enough to push it out on Facebook.
It isn't.
Even if you blast everybody.
How important is it to go see bands live?
Oh, it's really important.
I know, man. There's so many bands that when we talk to them, and when they say those same exact things for us, that it's about, it's not just about the Facebook list, and it's not just about the texting. It's about actually, seeing real people engaging. And I'm like, well, do you go to any shows? And they're like, well, it's hard to get out. Like, no shit. And for all the other people who aren't going to your show, it's hard to get out. Asshole.
See, I didn't know you could curse on this podcast.
Oh, yeah,
Otherwise, I'd fucking do it a lot more.
You can say anything you want. You can say anything you want. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a missing component. People don't get it. That if you want people to come see your band, you have to go see bands.
Yeah.
Would you say that the bands that you play with I know because I talked to some of the guys in those bands, they're very reliant on each other. They go to each other's shows.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, a certain chunk of the audience will be other bands, not just, of course. Obviously the bands that are playing there. This makes me think of maybe this has happened to every single band out there. We've played shows, we've just played for the other bands because nobody showed up.
Of course, yeah.
And then the bartender.
Yeah.
I told that story to somebody, and they said, "Well, they must be the harshest judge of music ever." So if you can win over the bartender because they just hear it every night,
Right. Yeah.
then you really got something right.
No, that's spot on. Tell me a little bit about what you have in the works, because I know we talked about these dates, and I want to mention them again. You have a couple of dates coming up. Tell me what you got planned.
Right. Besides those, we're writing. We've got a bunch of riffs that we've recorded, and we've got a skeleton of a couple of songs. So what we want to do is do another full length, because we did Corroded. That was our first one. And, we did our one-sided 12-inch Architectural Failures. And that only had 4 songs on it. So we want to bang out another one because we get asked a lot. What are you going to do? You're going to do another full length? So that's going to take a while. We're going to get around a half an hour of music. We got pretty close to that with Corroded. I think it was like 27 and a half minutes, something like that. We don't want to put out like a 7 inches worth and then say it's a full length. Our first record, it was about, I think it was like the LP version was like 15 minutes long, and we called it a mini album because it just wasn't long enough. Or maybe the CD version was 15 minutes long. Anyway, you see what I mean?
No, I do. Why do you guys go with the vinyl pressing? And that's not a challenge because I love vinyl. I love it. I love everything about it. But why do you choose that method to deliver your art?
That's really necessary with this scene, in the States. If you say, I'm going to do 1,000 CDs, you're just going to get why? Why are you doing that? Our label, Self-Made God, they're still very interested in CDs, and they don't want to do vinyl. So we've had, split label arrangements. Like, for example, Malacool did our Architectural Failures 12-inch, and then our label, Self-Made God, didn't have anything to do with it. He just said, let's wait for the full length so I can do a CD of it, because we told them we're just doing vinyl.
And is it a straight up economic decision, or is it just because they have a boutique idea of what they want to release?
No, it's just economic because they're based out of Poland, so
Okay.
they can move CDs over there.
Okay.
That's their sense of how things are going,
Interesting.
because he's doing it for a living,
Right.
The guy. Corroded, that was just on CD on Self-Made God, and then we put out the vinyl ourselves.
Can you talk a little bit about the dates you have coming up too? Just mention the dates again.
Oh yeah, April 16th at Empire, and then the very next show is this Friday the 28th at Club K in Baltimore.
That's right.
Yeah, we're pumped.
Super pumped.
This Friday will be our, what is it? Our 4th show with our new drummer,
Okay.
Ethan.
Yeah.
He plays in Permafrost. So, that's another cool thing about it too, so we can keep gelling.
So how are you guys finding? Is he involved in the writing process with you guys?
Well, we did a cover and he put his stamp on it, which we wanted him to do.
Okay.
So that's the first time he's contributed music in that sense. The songs that he didn't play on that he's learned, he's just playing them. I mean, of course, he's playing them his way, but he's not like interpreting them outside of just this is how he's playing.
Sure.
And I'm doing air drums right now. I've got my air sticks. So then, we're going to start showing him riffs, and we'll go, I'm thinking of a drum beat like this, like wanted to do a Slayer on this, and here's a double bass part. This part kind of sounds like Carcass, whatever. And he'll come up with something.
Cool. So when you guys are, and I was going to ask you that too, for a writing process for you, is it truly a collaborative thing, or do you come up with the riffs and then bring them to practice? Like, get a little into the process for me.
Yeah, so Taryn and I will put a song together, and it'll go back and forth. I'll come up with a guitar riff and a bass riff, or she'll have a bass riff and I have to come up with a guitar part on top of it. And there's been lots of times where she'll write something and I'll go, like, I'll just sit there and I go, I don't know what to do with that. Because we rarely just have the bass following the guitar and vice versa, So it took me a while to come up with something that sounded cool. And so we'll say, okay, we think the song's going to go like this, and that's when we'll show it to so this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to show it to Ethan. And we have a drum idea, we'll add that, it should sound like this, but once in a while, I'm sure we'll have a riff and we'll go, I don't know what to tell you. I can't think of anything. I don't know what to do on, I know the riff sounds cool, but I don't know if it's supposed to be fast or slow or what,
Cool.
so I guess that'll happen a few times. It hasn't happened yet though.
Two questions. One, what is it that, like, are there goals? Are there achievements? Like, what's left for you guys to do? Is it just making more music and continue to release things? Or are there dreams or aspirations, like another tour? Like, do you want to play the Super Bowl halftime show?
Yeah, with our instruments not plugged in. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, we want to do a tour in the fall. And I want to play more shows, do more weekends. That's just very general. We want to have that creative spark and bang out a bunch of songs, so we can go and record, do a full length, and keep the ball rolling. I want to keep playing awesome shows. We played the Philly date of the Decibel Magazine tour, the last one, and I was really nervous. I think that was the biggest show we ever played. We were opening, and then all the bands after us, it was just a lot of pressure.
How many people?
I don't know, but it was a big place in Philly. It was Union Transfer. And yeah, that was really nerve-wracking. It was like I didn't have nerves like that since like the first show I ever played.
Right.
I thought I was going to have a heart attack at that. It's funny. I've got this acoustic thing that's drawing to a close. Just me and this other guy. It's actually the singer and guitar player for Pigeon Down,
Okay.
which is another Virginia band.
Yeah.
And we played one show. We didn't use the PA. It was just he and I and two acoustic guitars. And yeah, I was having heart palpitations because I couldn't hide behind distortion.
Right. Yeah. Huh.
If like I screwed something up really bad, it was just there for everyone to see in broad daylight. That was really rough.
That's rad, because I mean, you wouldn't think that, because you've been playing music for how long now? It's been over 20.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to date you, but it's been over 20 years,
Oh,
right?
go ahead.
Yeah.
My first band started in 91, I think.
Yeah, so just 22 years, right?
Yeah, there are some patches where I wasn't doing anything because, we didn't have a drummer or I was in between bands or something.
Still, that's a long time to be doing, and to hear about like how you would still have nerves, that's pretty, I mean, I think sometimes that's lost for people who are just starting. They think that, what they see on stage is it, and that the perfect performance that they just witnessed is how it all sort of just came together, but they don't realize that there's anxiety and practice and self-doubt that goes in, to those, into making that become a reality.
Well, besides those three instances, everything's pretty much smooth sailing.
Mm-hmm.
But, I've noticed that having a positive mental attitude, it really makes a difference, at least with me and maybe with all of us. If you go in saying, okay, we got this, we practiced, we're going to go up there, and we're going to kill it. It's going to be fine. We're going to have fun. That really makes a difference with how you play.
It does. I mean, and it's not overconfidence, but it's an excitement. It's looking forward to the challenge rather than being like, oh God, like I got to make sure I don't fuck this up.
Oh yeah. If you go like that, then it's over.
Right. And if it's not fun, then what the hell's the point?
And it's important to project some confidence too.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you screw up, just the show must go on. I remember this band I was in, we played, and the song was a total wreck and everybody was looking at each other.
Mm-hmm.
And some people told me, yeah, it was really obvious something happened there. They just didn't know what it was because they weren't familiar enough with the song.
Right.
But they just couldn't tell something happened.
Sure.
Just with the look on everybody's face.
Yeah. That's a good tip for bands. Don't make that face when you mess up, because we know immediately. We're like, oh shit, something happened. So give a little advice to the little kids out there, not real little, but to the teenagers out there, they're getting started. They just got their first microphone. They just got their first guitar. What could someone say to you in 1991, like when you were just starting to play music? What's some advice you could give the 1991 version of yourself?
Shit. This friend of mine, his band opened up. They're called Wild Love. It was like their second show. And, they just killed it. They were so awesome. And the interesting thing was they were just like a pop rock band.
Right.
And they were playing with a Colt 45, this sort of, a grinding, crusty, sludgy band.
Mm-hmm.
And then Pigeon Down, they've got blast beats and the singer's screaming most of the time and they downtune. So they're totally out of their element. But, I mean, there were guys with death metal T-shirts on there going, dude, you guys were awesome after they played.
Awesome.
So I think they should be giving some advice. I know that they just practice their asses off. That's a really good piece of advice is just practice,
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
And also, it's really important to have the right people. If something's not working out, maybe you should try to get somebody else. You could try to get it to work out, but if it doesn't, if you think there's someone that, might suit the band better.
Mm-hmm. So practice. Don't settle for playing with some jabroni.
A what?
I was gonna say don't settle for playing with some jabroni that's not working out. Just get them out of there as soon as you can. But in terms of the things that you have done that you think you've done correctly, like what could you say to the 1991 version of yourself? Like, hey, I did this and it really worked out for me. Aside from the practice. And then I'm going to ask you, tell that 1991 person, don't ever do this. 'Cause this was the worst idea I ever had.
Looking back, I made a lot of mistakes in the first couple of bands I was in, and that had to do with... It's going back to making sure you have the right people in the band.
Right.
And I guess, traditionally... when punk started, you read these stories about, hey, this guy plays drums, let's have him play drums, and that was it. Mm-hmm. As long as they could physically play, and they just went for it, and
right.
Then they got better over time. What those bands that made it, that worked out for them. But I guess it comes back to playing your cards right, not burning bridges with people, trying to stay friends with them. When you're not playing with them anymore,
Right.
Sometimes you don't... I guess it's like relationships. You ever hear people in bands talk about being in a band is like being in a relationship?
I mean, yes.
So, you think... You don't go out with somebody, I guess, thinking that, yeah, I want this relationship to just crash and burn. That's why I'm going to start going out with this person.
Right.
Maybe you don't figure it out until later.
No, but that analogy works perfectly because, before you're mature enough to know that you're supposed to end one relationship before you start another, like there is that moment of like, well, I'm going to go start doing this thing with this other band. Fuck these other guys, and they'll just go away.
You got to cover your butt. And, if you're going to part ways with somebody, you try to have somebody waiting in the wings.
Yeah.
Just so you can just keep the machine going. That's really important.
Richard, I really appreciate your time, man. This has been a really fun interview.
Thank you.
Mr. Precedent game should have taught me straight.
That was Paper Trails by Drugs of Faith. You've just been listening to an interview with Richard Johnson of Drugs of Faith. Drugs of Faith are going to be playing this Friday, March 28th, with Hellbear and The Wayward. There's another band that he made reference to in the interview, and I apologize that I don't have it written down in front of me. Drugs of Faith is also going to be playing April 16th with Czar and Mobius Strip, so make sure you go out and check that show out too. Hopefully, the Pilot Waves is going to try to make it out to the Drugs of Faith and the Wayward and the Hellbear show tomorrow night. We hope that you're going to be out there too. As you know, on the Pilot Waves, this is all about community. It's all about the intersection of art and commerce. And Richard alluded to it earlier. You know, a lot of people who might come out and say that they think music should be free. I wonder if they would say the same thing about art. Should all art be free? And maybe they would say that. But right now, what the Pilot Waves is focused on is trying to get more people out to see live music, to see if we can get more sales of music that's recorded, more physical media, because we have boners for those sorts of things. Thanks for joining us on the Pilot Waves podcast. Please engage with us. Send us an email at culture@pilotwaves.com. You can tweet us at pilotwaves. Or you can just post a message on our YouTube page. There's a million ways that you can get in contact with us. And if you have ideas for people you want us to interview, if you have ideas for questions, if you just want to give us any kind of feedback at all, we would love to hear from you. Thanks for joining us. And as always, we're going to end the show with a wonderful song by Louisa Hall, Tea.
Like a warm cup of tea, that's how you always feel to me. Oh, a taste of you can cure almost any melody. If I'm sleepy or I'm blue, if I hurt or have the flu, oh, it's you I turn to. Oh, I never knew I needed you so much. Oh, the thought of you, the smell of you, the touch, it fills me up with comfort. It helps to keep me calm. But this tea's grown cold and bitter, 'cause I've let it steep too long. I need a brand new beverage. I'm sick of all this tea. First thing tomorrow morning, I'm switching to coffee.